I came back home for Christmas after 6 months on medical deployment. The house smelled the same dry turkey overcooked stuffing and that dim fluorescent light that had always made every holiday feel more like a waiting room than a celebration. I sat at the table, my daughter across from me. She was only 18 in her first year of medical school. Posture, straight eyes, tired in a way I remembered from my own youth. She looked good, though tired from effort, not defeat. I watched her lift her fork and wondered if she knew what I had done for her these past months. Quietly, I asked, "Was the $400 I sent each month enough?" She blinked, confused. "What money?" The fork slipped from her hand, clinking on the plate. My mother flinched. My father shifted in his chair. My sister suddenly found her wine glass fascinating. I repeated the words carefully. The money I sent every month for her rent, her textbooks, her food. She stared at me like I had spoken in another language. "You sent that to me?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Of course." Her voice trembled. "I thought you couldn't afford it. Grandma said you wanted to help but couldn't, that I shouldn't bring it up because it might upset you." I didn't look away. "And you believed that—" My daughter's lips parted, but she didn't speak. The silence at the table grew heavy. My sister muttered something about dessert. My mother straightened the salt shaker as though alignment could restore dignity. My father poured more gravy no one would eat. I stared at them, and in that moment, I knew. The money I had sent faithfully, month after month, had never reached my daughter. They had taken it. She had believed all along that I had abandoned her, and they let her believe it. I stood up. So did she. We left without finishing the meal. No one stopped us. In the car, neither of us spoke until we were blocks away. At a gas station, she whispered, "Was it really? Every month?" I nodded. 400 for you, 400 for the house. I wanted you to focus on school." She leaned back against the seat, eyes wide, with something worse than anger betrayal. "I thought I didn't matter to you," she whispered. "Like maybe you were finally free of me." My throat tightened. "No," I said. "Never." That night, in a small hotel room, she confessed she had been skipping meals, working double shifts just to stay afloat. She had almost dropped out, and all the while my parents told her I couldn't help. I sat beside her, not touching, just close enough for her to feel I was there. Later, when she slept, I opened my laptop and logged into the mortgage account. I had trusted my sister to live in my house while I was gone, covering the payments, maintaining the place, so I wouldn't worry. But as I stared at the screen, my stomach dropped. Not a single payment had been made in months. Instead, a hardship pause had been filed under my name. My identity stolen. My signature forged. My house hanging in the balance. I closed the laptop slowly, my hands trembling. They hadn't just stolen from me. They had stolen from my daughter. They let her believe she was abandoned, all while pocketing the money meant to keep her safe. Rage pressed against my ribs, but I didn't scream. I didn't storm back to confront them. Instead, I waited. Because 3 days from now, I would be standing at my sister's door, and nothing would ever be the same again. 3 days later, I stood outside my sister's house with a folder in my hand and Ethan by my side. Ethan had been a broke law student once, scraping by with overdue bills I had quietly paid for him. Now he was a lawyer, sharp-eyed and unflinching. When I called him and showed him the bank records, the mortgage pause, and the text messages proving the $400 was for my daughter, he didn't hesitate. "This isn't just betrayal," he said. This is fraud. And we can prove it. My sister opened the door wearing a smug smile. Well, look who finally came home, she said, leaning on the frame like nothing was wrong. Ethan handed her an envelope. Eviction notice, effective in 30 days. She laughed, tossing her hair. Cute, I'm moving out anyway. Already bought my own place. My stomach tightened. You what? She stepped aside, and I saw the boxes stacked in the living room. My parents were there too, wrapping dishes that didn't belong to them. We're helping her move, my mother said casually, as if this were perfectly normal. I forced myself to stay calm. How did you buy a house? My sister smirked. By not wasting money on rent. You should try it sometime. Ethan's jaw tightened. I pressed further. You mean the mortgage you were supposed to pay? She shrugged. Tomato, tomato. My father set down a box and crossed his arms. She needed a home. You weren't using it. The words hit me like a slap. I wasn't using it because I was working myself to the bone overseas. For her. For my daughter. My mother waved a hand. You act like we forced you. You chose to send that money. My sister cut in sharply. Your daughter was fine. She was working 2 jobs living on cereal. She survived. That was the moment my voice rose. She thought I abandoned her. She thought I didn't care. Ethan stepped forward and handed my sister a second envelope. Formal demand for repayment of the mortgage restitution of stolen funds, $16,800 plus damages. She scoffed. Damages, please. I saved the house from foreclosure by pausing payments. You should be grateful. My mother folded her arms. She's your sister. I turned to her, my voice cold. You told my daughter I didn't care. You made her believe she was a burden. And now you stand here justifying theft. The room went quiet. My sister's smile faltered just for a second, but she quickly masked it with arrogance. You're just jealous. I'm better at life than you. You work yourself sick while I move up. Ethan looked at me and I nodded. We'll see you in court. We walked out, leaving them with their boxes and their lies. That night, I went to see my daughter. She opened the door, a pencil still behind her ear, textbooks spread across the bed. I sat beside her and told her everything: the mortgage, the stolen money, the impersonation. She listened quietly, then said, It makes sense. I was always optional to them. My chest ached. Not to me, I said. Never to me. The case went to court a month later. Their lawyer stood stiffly before the judge and said, Your Honor, the money was a gift. No formal agreement exists. I almost laughed at the audacity. My lawyer calmly presented the text messages, the mortgage agreement my sister had signed, and the recordings of her admitting she impersonated me to pause the loan. The courtroom went still as her own voice played aloud. You should be grateful. I paused the payments for you. You act like I trashed the place. Their defense crumbled. The judge ruled in my favor, full repayment damages and legal fees. But my sister had already spent the money on her new house. Within weeks, she defaulted on the court-ordered payments. The judge authorized a property transfer. The house she had flaunted as her triumph was signed over to me. The very thing she had stolen became mine. When I told my daughter, she didn't celebrate. She simply whispered, So we won. I nodded. We did. She quit her second job the next day. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to rest. After the ruling, everything in their world began to unravel. My sister, who had strutted into court as if life would bend to her, was suddenly saddled with debts she couldn't repay. The house she bragged about was legally transferred to me, leaving her scrambling. She moved into a rundown apartment working part-time jobs just to cover her own survival. The arrogance faded quickly when reality demanded rent and bills that couldn't be excused by charm. My parents didn't fare much better. Their reputation among extended family and neighbors cracked under the weight of the truth. Everyone knew what they had done that they'd stolen from their own granddaughter, and it was the kind of shame that couldn't be neatly swept away. But my daughter, she was the one who mattered. With the rental income from both properties, I redirected every dollar straight to her. Housing, tuition, books, groceries covered. For the first time since she left for college, she wasn't working herself to exhaustion just to keep the lights on. She still chose to keep her part-time cafe job, saying it gave her a sense of independence, but it was by choice, not necessity. That difference mattered. We fell into a new rhythm. I was still on deployment for a while longer, but every Sunday we video called. She would hold up her stethoscope, laugh about professors who piled on impossible assignments, and sometimes just sit in silence with me when words felt too heavy. Slowly, I saw the tension lift from her shoulders. Her eyes no longer looked haunted. She was thriving in the life I had always wanted for her. Meanwhile, my sister called me once, her voice frantic. She begged me for an extension for mercy. "We're family," she said, but the word rang hollow. Family isn't supposed to gut you from the inside. I listened, then simply said, "Talk to my lawyer." She hung up crying, but I didn't feel guilt. Not anymore. They had chosen their path. The months passed, and my health improved. The stress that had coiled around me for years began to loosen. I started planning for a permanent return home. My daughter and I found a small apartment near her campus, cozy but warm. I didn't move in with her. She needed her independence, but we shared dinners weekly, filling the quiet spaces that Betrayal had left behind. Each meal felt like healing. One night over pasta, she admitted softly, "I blocked Grandma, Grandpa, and Aunt Tara." "I don't feel guilty," I smiled. "Good. You shouldn't." We clinked forks like glasses. That moment I realized we were rewriting our story, not the one my parents had tried to force on us, but one we built together. And yet deep inside, there was still an ache. Not for them, but for the years lost, the lies that had festered. I wondered if my daughter would ever fully forgive me for not realizing sooner what had been happening behind my back. But when I asked her once, she shook her head. "You didn't abandon me. They did. You came back. That's what matters." It was then I knew healing wasn't about perfect endings. It was about showing up again and again until the cracks didn't hurt as much. My parents and sister tried to erase my daughter's future. Instead, they erased themselves from ours. 6 months after the trial, I came home from my final deployment. The airport felt the same as always, crowded, noisy, a blur of people rushing toward reunions or departures. But when I saw my daughter waiting just beyond security, the rest of the world seemed to fade. She stood there with her medical textbooks tucked under one arm, a nervous smile on her lips. For a second, I worried she might hesitate, but the moment we locked eyes, she dropped everything and ran into my arms. The hug wasn't dramatic, just steady and warm, the kind you give when you know you've both survived something that could have broken you. Life after that began to settle into something we had never truly known: peace. I rented out both properties, the ones my sister had tried to use against me, and redirected every dollar of income straight into my daughter's education. Her rent, tuition, textbooks, even groceries covered. For the first time, she didn't need to balance 2 jobs, classes, and sleepless nights just to scrape by. She still chose to work 1 shift a week at a cafe, not because she had to, but because she liked it. That difference, having choice instead of desperation, was everything. Our relationship grew stronger in small, ordinary ways. Sunday dinners in her little apartment, video calls during my last few months abroad, quiet walks after long study sessions. The kind of moments we'd missed for years, stolen back piece by piece. Each one was a reminder that while betrayal had fractured us, truth had given us something even stronger. She no longer looked haunted by exhaustion or disappointment. Instead, she laughed more easily, smiled more freely, and carried herself with a confidence that made me proud. Meanwhile, my sister and parents spiraled. The judgment had stripped my sister of the house she boasted about. She was forced into a cramped apartment, juggling multiple part-time jobs just to cover basic expenses. The arrogance that once defined her turned into bitterness. My parents tried to maintain appearances, but their reputation had been shattered. Neighbors whispered. Relatives distanced themselves. Even their closest friends avoided them, unwilling to be caught in the shadow of what they had done. The family that once demanded gratitude from me now found themselves isolated, their lies laid bare. They called, of course. Voicemails filled with half-hearted apologies, pleas for help, or angry rants about betrayal. I didn't answer. Neither did my daughter. She had blocked them all. One night over pasta, she admitted softly, "I don't feel guilty for cutting them off." I reached for her hand. "Good," I told her. "You shouldn't. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival." We tapped our forks together like a toast, and she smiled. But late at night, I sometimes wondered if forgiveness was possible. Could we ever sit in the same room without the silence choking us? Would time ever soften what they had done? Then I remembered my daughter's words. I don't think about them. I don't have space. And I realized that was the answer. Forgiveness wasn't the point. Freedom was. I no longer cared about their downfall. I didn't celebrate their losses or mourn their isolation. What mattered was the life we were building. My daughter's grades soared. Professors noticed her talent. She joined a research team and talked about specializing in cardiology. One evening, she confessed a dream. "When I finish med school, I want to volunteer abroad. Maybe open clinics where people can't afford doctors." Her voice trembled with passion, and I felt tears sting my eyes. "Then we'll make it happen," I promised. The irony never escaped me. My parents and sister had stolen from her, lied to her, and tried to erase her future. Yet their betrayal became the very fuel that secured it. Every rent payment that came in every meal I shared with her, every dream she spoke aloud, all of it was made possible because I had chosen to fight back. And so when people ask if I went too far, I don't hesitate. No, I didn't go too far. I went exactly as far as I needed to. Far enough to reclaim what was ours, to protect my daughter, and to finally draw a line they could never cross again. A year slipped by, and with it, the last pieces of the old life we'd been forced to carry. My daughter thrived in ways I'd only dared hope for. Her schedule was brutal labs lectures, late-night study groups, but instead of draining her, it seemed to energize her. She had purpose now, no longer weighed down by the quiet suspicion that she was forgotten. Her professors praised her dedication, her classmates leaned on her for support, and she began to believe in herself the way I had always believed in her. Watching her grow felt like watching the sun rise after years of storm. At her 19th birthday, she stood in the kitchen of her small apartment with a single candle on a cake. There weren't balloons, there wasn't a crowd, but the room glowed brighter than any family gathering I had ever known. We laughed as she tried to cut the cake with a butter knife, and later that night she said something I'll never forget. "I finally feel like I'm building my own life, not living in the shadow of theirs." It was the kind of sentence that tells you healing is happening, even if the scars never completely fade. Meanwhile, the rest of my family was unraveling. My sister's once smug grin had turned into bitterness as the weight of her debts crushed her. She cycled through jobs, none of which lasted long, and people who once admired her avoided her altogether. My parents, too, faced consequences they couldn't escape. Their finances were in shambles, their circle of friends evaporated, and the reputation they'd worked so hard to polish was now stained beyond repair. The more they tried to shift blame onto me, the more isolated they became. There were moments when I wondered if they thought of us, if they sat in their quiet house and cursed my name, or if late at night they replayed the choices that had led them here. But those thoughts didn't haunt me the way they used to. I no longer measured my worth through their approval. They had chosen their path, and we had chosen ours. I saw my sister once by accident. I was leaving the grocery store, arms full of bags, when I noticed her at the checkout line. Her hair was unkempt, her clothes worn, her posture slouched, like someone carrying years of disappointment. For a moment, our eyes met. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but I turned and walked away. Not out of spite, but because I had nothing left to give. That chapter was closed. Instead, I focused on building something new with my daughter. We found joy in the simplest things: burnt garlic bread, weekend walks, movie nights where we laughed too loudly. These moments, small as they were, felt like treasures we had earned through fire. She no longer asked about her grandparents or aunt. She had carved them out of her heart like a tumor, painful but necessary. And I didn't try to fill the silence with excuses or platitudes. Some absences are healthier left unhealed. She once asked me, "Do you think we'll ever forgive them?" I thought carefully before answering. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about us. If one day you decide you need that to move forward, I'll stand by you. But if you don't, that's okay too. You don't owe them your peace. She nodded, and I saw relief in her eyes. Sometimes permission not to forgive is the greatest gift you can give. Financially, we were more stable than I had ever dreamed. The rental income gave us freedom. For the first time, I had savings not out of fear, but out of possibility. I started sketching again, filling notebooks with drawings I'd once set aside. My daughter teased me, saying one day she'd frame them in her clinic. I laughed, but a part of me believed her. The house they tried to steal now pays for her education. The lies they spun became the foundation of our independence. And the betrayal that nearly broke us taught us the most valuable truth of all family isn't who shares your blood, but who shares your burdens. So when people ask me if I regret taking them to court, if I regret cutting them out, I smile. No, I don't regret it, because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is protect yourself and the ones you love, even if it means walking away from those who call themselves family. And to anyone listening, if you've ever been told to stay quiet for the sake of peace, remember this: silence only protects the guilty. You don't owe your loyalty to people who betray you. You owe it to yourself and to those who truly love you to fight for what's right. If this story moved you, please like, share, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what family means to you and how far you'd go to protect the ones you love.